Classic. Classic. Good stuff. Here we go. Fire up the old... Gotta have the Zelda and Cho. Ooh, we're in the wrong channel here. Hold on. That should be better. All right. Hey, that's better. Digging back into the progress here. Let's see the work so far. A stream, yeah, exactly. A stream that isn't at 5 a.m. Why would I do that? Why would I stream at 5 a.m.? We're coming back to the midnight piece. Thanks for joining, Charity. I'm gonna be trying to be on for a while till about 3:45. No later. No later than 3:45. Coming back to this. You know, I like it. Yeah, I'm done at that hour too. So, my wife is being helpful with the whole trying to drink less kind of thing. And, now we all know that staying up late and drinking and stuff is good for the stream. It's obviously good for the stream. It's not necessarily good for my health and or my work or my emotions or, you know, my children or my brain or anything like that. So when having had tried and done that for quite some time, obviously there were benefits creatively and in my output to not sleeping and simply drawing and drinking all night. I'm doing better these days to sort of flip it to the opposite. Essentially going to bed at a normal hour, like even 9 o'clock last night. And then actually I get a decent amount of sleep and then I can just get up at 4:30. I do a healthy walk to Starbucks. I buy my shitty coffee, come back, and then my wife does a walk, and then I do a stream at the same time. So I can do a quick stream at like 5 a.m. And though it's a quick stream, and though it is arguably less creative, it establishes a good baseline for my willpower and just sort of keeping the stream warm as opposed to letting it get to, I don't want cobwebs. Like right now I have an opportunity, but opportunities like this are maybe like once a week available. And if I'm only streaming once a week, it's not enough to call a habit, right? And it's the habits that will carry me there. Dunkin' is better. No Dunkins in my area. You don't drink, you partake in totally illegal substances. More on that later. Unfortunately, it's not amazing news. I wouldn't call me raw dogging life or anything like that, but I'm more or less resolved not to drink whatever my wife doesn't pour for me. If that makes sense. And then just focus on, I need to replace bad habits with good ones. So I'm exercising more and stuff. That's not bad. Baby steps. What I call exercise, you would call like a nap, probably. But that can be healthy too. All right, let's see here. I need to figure out what color this is. Okay, it's black. Apparently I was inking with black. That's interesting. Lame? Yes, I am lame. My pothead days are pretty much over. Obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, but I was. And I still love getting high. It's just, man, my, I actually fainted the last time I smoked weed. Like I literally like fell on my face, and my wife saw it. Luckily, it was just a dinner party with like the 4 of us. But like that's the second time I fainted and smoked weed and fallen on my face, and it's because I wasn't smoking with regularity. It was just sort of like, oh, I haven't smoked in a while. Oh, I get past a joint, and then I have some. Then like 5 minutes later, like I'm seeing stars, right? My blood pressure like drains out of my face. So, you know, and that's probably because I've got some sort of hidden neurological condition that the gummies, I had gummies cause a fainting issue too. That was previous to all that stuff. I fainted on an airplane. That wasn't fun. That was very scary. And then I fainted in the car with my 2 kids at a gas station. I could only see stars. I had to call my wife to come and get us. And those two times were on gummies. And so there's something happening. Yeah, no, it's bad. And like I'm getting tired of like being like, I can handle this, and like I do something, and then see the problem with the gummies. This was the problem. See, you're probably innocent enough with the gummies, but I was like, oh, I'll have a gummy. And then I was like, did I have a gummy? I don't remember. I'll just pop another gummy. And that's bad. That's bad to do, right? So I learned things the hard way. I live dangerously and learn the hard way, right? Not giving the parents who responsibly do recreational substances a good name. It's not a good look. It's just not a good look. So, you know, but it's whatever your body's attenuated to, you know? And then sometimes it's like you can do stuff in a certain circumstance and your body's attenuated to that circumstance, but then you do them outside of that same circumstance and it's like your body's like, whoa, I'm not used to doing that here, you know? Let's have a bad reaction or something. Anyway. So let's not do what I do. Let's do better. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to use a higher grade of brush. That's about right. I bought some $4 ones and didn't think they'd do anything, so I took 2. I don't feel anything. Took 1 more. I fucked up. I smoked partaken daily for years. I used to be, man, I was one of those guys with like the 2-foot, 2-foot laser cut roars. If you recognize that term, you might. The German engineered bongs that were in vogue in the early 2000s. And they're very expensive, beaker style with like the ash catcher and the ice pinch. Oh, and crook neck for truly relaxing smoking. Got some epic smoke stories, and I kept all that up for a long time. But the weird psychological thrill of breaking the rules, it kind of lost its shine for me eventually when pot was legal. My parents started experimenting with it and stuff. maybe they already had been. I didn't know about it, but it about that time I had, and my wife and I have always had like a wine-based relationship. It just sort of eventually got into more wine. Wine, then whiskey, and then just whatever, anytime, anywhere. All of that was bad, and I'm certainly not a non-drinker or anything like that, but yeah, I've had enough negative experiences that I just don't feel excited to do it as casually as I used to. Can't do whiskey anymore. Or tequila or vodka or any liquor, really. I've noticed I kind of feel like if I'm being honest, I feel like I black out when I drink hard liquor, and they say that's a very bad sign, so they're wrong, of course. No. No, I think it's a good time for me to hang up the spurs. I can set a better example for my kids, etc. My kids are getting to the age where, like, they might be able to, like, tell if I'm drunk and, form an opinion about that, so... And it's like another factor is if I'm basically being like sort of unhinged with sort of drinking or having being like a party animal or whatever, that kind of puts my wife in a place where like she has to then sort of not, in order to be someone has to be responsible sometimes, and it's like, if it's not me, and it's clearly not me in those situations, then it sort of defaults to her. It's not fair. And it's just like a bad anxiety cope anyway. I don't, it's not like I'm inexperienced in life and I don't have the tools to like actually just make friends and make conversation at a party where I don't know anybody and stuff like that. I'm just like, I know how to do this stuff now. Kids are older, they partake but safely at home, which is wild because I never thought they would. Yeah. Micheladas. Yeah, those are great. I don't have a, I'm like a savory tooth, not a sweet tooth kind of guy. So I'm just not a big fan of like sweet drinks, sweet cocktails. Prefer the micheladas definitely slap. I'm gonna make some intentional design deviations, slight with Midnight here. I'm gonna oversize her ears a bit. We're playing with her proportions a little in this. Overall, she in relation to Link is gonna be a little small. Smaller than compared to in the game, for instance. And she's small in the game. But here we'll make her even smaller. Only sweet drink I liked was Blue Hawaiian from the Hard Rock. Don't think I've tried that. Yeah, I want to be accurate to the character, but not necessarily at the sacrifice of composition. The composition has to be more important than anything. So some of these things, I'm sort of auditing them as I draw them because it feels like it's having too much wiriness to her hair. Some wiriness, good. But I want to leave some room for like what texture can accomplish versus like graphic design. In this. So it's subtle, you can see what I'm doing to her ear. So it's not just a triangle. A lot of time in video games, they'll just make things simple so that they're simple for like the graphics engine or something. But there's no reason for us to consider the limitations of the graphics engine as the final word on a character design. Something like this. It's just what I feel. This is how I feel the ear wants to be. That's like a douchey director way of saying it. I feel like the camera wants to be over here. I've literally heard directors say stuff like that, and it's of course douchey, but it is sort of like, now that I'm director and I'm in charge, I kind of get it. She's making us some marsala right now. Ooh. That's a good arc to be in. The children cooking for you arc. My oldest is pretty good at making her own scrambled eggs now. That's kind of good. She could probably do a lot more, and we have, we really should get on the whole, here, you do it, or like, take the time to show her how to do stuff. It's like basic life skills stuff, right? We might be a little in denial that she's like competent enough to handle this stuff, but I think she is. Gotta remember to save. And I should say that, because I think I did earlier, but I don't remember. The stream will go until about 3:45. About then, I gotta leave to go pick up kiddos from camp. So my goal is, if possible, get this inked. And it should be. It's not even that big, right? What's so hard about that? Woohoo, double stream time. Hey, Sextra. Yeah, this will go a while. I'm not sure if that's more or less exciting, but it'll be... The goal is to get this quote-unquote inked. If I can, that'll feel like a really good milestone. there was that. Uh, I caught that AI accusation the other day, and I guess it was a couple of weeks ago at this point. And it didn't it didn't really rattle me, but it sort of feels like good insurance, if nothing else, and possibly good education, to do like a full stream documentation of some of these processes, because I haven't done that in a long time, like since the original like OG cinematic pieces. Right. Documented everything for months and months and months, and it sort of took forever, and I and nobody but Sextra noticed them. Pretty much. But it was a good start, and I learned a lot. It's lunchtime for me, so I'm going to be chowing down with some stream art. All right, yeah, chow it down. So I took a break from streaming everything, every darn second of the process. Got a lot more art done. Got a lot more... felt like I made a lot more progress. But there's trade-offs, and one of those trade-offs is, of course, it's less, I guess, arguable that I'm not like hiding some hidden step or something like that. People really want to see the suffering, and I guess, is that it? Yeah. It's like artists are begging for attention, just like people begging for money. And in order to know that the people who... before I give you my attention, the way I give people who beg for money, I need to know that you're for real. Are you suffering? Show me the suffering. I need to see the suffering, yes? For 500,000 years, artists' suffering had been very, very obvious. Very, very obvious. Now, because of AI, and to a greater extent, like tracing and forgery and stuff like that, but in a more universal way, these problems have always been with us. But the imitators, just like those who malinger and, are the fakers of the victim world, I guess, are putting themselves out there as people deserving of support. The skeptics will sometimes cast too broad a brush and color those innocent with the brush of the guilty. And if you don't mind me saying, I think a lot of people have a little too much zeal in their efforts to root out fakers and things like that. And that's coming from a person. It's like, obviously, I am super anti-AI and all that, and I do want honesty and all that stuff, but it's always been hard to determine who is tracing or who isn't tracing, or who is truly talented versus someone who's like faking it, or is that really her voice, or is she using auto-tune or whatever? These are not new problems. It's tricky. So maybe in the way that like a singer can possibly put forth evidence of them singing live or putting on a live concert as evidence that they can and do sing with their natural voice. Maybe that is considered good evidence. I don't know if it is. But hopefully doing something on a live stream is considered good evidence for doing it the right way. I think it's true and will always be so, yes. Eventually things unravel. If fakers pretend too long, they will eventually be known. I agree. This stuff sorts itself out in time. So I think hopefully I'm setting an example that it feels positive, is that I don't want to, I mean, obviously evidence comes up on social media and you look at this stuff and it sort of be like, oh yeah, that does look pretty sus or whatever. Early in the AI controversies, especially on Reddit and stuff like that, I definitely got my hands a little bit more involved and would be like, this is looking like, I'd make comments like, this doesn't look real, this is AI slop, and it only on stuff that is AI slop, because it's like I can tell. But as time goes by, new tricks get folded in. Honestly, it's hard to tell sometimes. I think a greater indication is like, you know, are they consistent? Are they like an AI slop bro can't really help themselves from pushing out more and more stuff constantly or whatever. And yeah, because they have no taste or discernibility of what's realistic, eventually they will catch the they will catch suspicions. Suspicions will come their way. But the general anonymity of the internet at large makes it so that a person who, if they're caught out and judged guilty, they can just remake themselves from nothingness and start all over again. If they have the energy and the willpower, very difficult to eradicate the diehard slopper, I'd say. Man, the more I've drawn a couple of these Midna helmets and they make no sense at all. Like it's not even like, they're like, should we make it symmetrical? But even if it's like symmetrical, it's not even symmetrical like on her head. It just doesn't. So I'm taking it all with a grain of salt here. Weird eye thing. Yeah, I definitely took some liberties in this sketch, but because the sketch is goated, I'm going to just sort of adhere to it. The rough sketch played well on social media. No reason to think I did anything egregious in changes to the design. Don't know what would be in here. Put some random stuff. There's all these intricate sort of noodlings that I don't know if I love. I don't love design. Like, they're just like, oh, just cram some stuff in there. That's something you do in video games. As a result of like the video game's power to render well repetitive patterns. So like if you look at like character design from, especially cartoon character design from like the 80s and 90s, and hell, like even more so in like the 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s, think about how simple they made the character designs for cartoons, and how and then how complex they are for like modern video games. Especially like that one game, like Zenless Zen Zero, has like endless bits of detail upon detail with like belt buckles and straps and patterns and pleats and folds and whatnot. And a lot of that is just based on, back then you had the limitation, a very serious limitation of not being able to draw endless details for hours and hours and hours if you were like an animator on a show. Things had to be much simpler so that you could execute lots and lots of drawings in a day. Since the computer's doing all the work now, it's not a limitation, but I fear what it's doing is sort of like creating a sort of a runaway feedback loop. Like if a game has that and it happens to be successful, people will say, oh, well, those are the character designs for that game, and look how successful it was. We should create versions that are like that for our game. And the original game probably had cool gameplay, you know, or whatever. And who knows, maybe they strike gold twice. But as a result, there's just infinite amounts of noodling and intricacies in the design of characters now in games. Endless stitching and bootstraps, and like a boot used to be just like a big old sleeve you put over your foot in old-timey cartoons. Now a boot is buckles and straps and folds and wrinkles and stitching and like a waffle print on the bottom, and it can take all day to draw a shoe. Hence, I'm like going to spend like 2 hours drawing Midna's helmet here, whereas Midna's body is like nothing. even though we're adding details seem to be a taste thing. In this case, like, so I don't feel like I... Oh, you're not defending details, are you? I mean, they definitely are, but they're not a requisite for quality, I guess is what I'm saying. Didn't you drop that one person who does all that crazy armor? Where did they go? I don't remember their name. When you can see the suffering, yes. You can appreciate the suffering. I think well-designed armors are good. I don't know what flavor of... See, there's a flavor of ADD or ADHD where it's like that kind of stuff is like really stimulating and awesome. And you really like that, right? But I look at that and I just get overwhelmed. I become blind to it. It's not something that it's not something that I like at all, actually. If the people who like, setting aside that one artist we mentioned a second ago, because they're just a drop in the bucket, like one of trillions that actually do that sort of thing. If they were, it's one thing to sort of design it in a pose where like someone's just like right there, you know, or whatever. But putting that like into an environment and lighting it, and then like changing the position. Like, what if you were responsible for doing a graphic novel with all that? Like, oh, my character has all this detail in his armor. I'm just like, okay, well, you can enjoy drawing that again and again and again. Unless you're the guy who draws Berserk, that crazy comic, right? If that's your jam. But he's an example of Berserk only got away with it because it wasn't in color. And to be extremely give him some serious props is there's some great design happening in like what he does and doesn't render. And yes, like it looks tiresome to... It's like in my opinion, he's not the he's not that egregious of an example of someone who is taking it too far. At least in a lot of the examples, because I've never really read the comic at all, but I see people posting it on Reddit. Somehow Reddit knows I'm receptive to that sort of thing. I'm going to make some other tasteful adjustments here because I feel like it needs them. You know, he 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 could chew what he bit off, and doing it well. And yeah, as a result, those comics come out like once a year or something, right? Like it's famous for being like something that people have to wait for. In his case, sort of done it right. And there's other examples of anime and manga where the trade-off is clear with the art, but people go nuts for it when they get it, and that's good. On the opposite side of the spectrum, this Midna helmet just feels like it's almost like a mush of scribble. It is aesthetic. There is a composition to it, but I don't. It just sort of looks like filler to me. There's good reasons to like it if it's your jam, but it's just sort of texture at this point. It definitely isn't anything that it doesn't look like anything that the game designers actually wanted you to look at and be like, oh, like this is... Like it looks like what AI would sort of like fudge. It would sort of generate to fill in the space. It's like, oh, hieroglyphs go here. Okay, well, these almost look like hieroglyphs if you squint, right? I don't know. Maybe I could be nicer about it, but maybe the artistic lesson will hit me at midnight tonight as I'm trying to sleep. And in my dream, I'm drawing tiny rivulets of worm texture carved into stone. And all will become clear. They're a little bit nightmarish, a little bit hallucinatory. Yeah, they get the job done. Kind of, yeah, since those carved lines and swirls also pop up in the new Zelda games, but as decorations, I think it's a preferred texture symbol and the artists like to plop down for details. And Sexter, you're sort of a good person to ask about this. I don't think this applies to me that much. I'm a bit sort of disciplined and methodical in my process, but what I've noticed, and something I think I've noticed, is that I think it's common for artists to have a like a sort of therapeutic mental zenness of sort of zoning out a little bit and then just sort of like having their hands like sort of do a detail kind of a thing on a piece of art, whether it's shading or whether it's like coloring or whatever. In small bursts, like I definitely feel a sense of this myself. But I wonder, like, if that is something that you feel like you experience when you do your stuff. Because sometimes I feel like I see in your art a lot of, I see a lot of strokes. I see a lot of strokes, and not in a bad way. It's just, there's just a lot of them. Where I think, like, part of the enjoyment that you might be getting out of it is part of like the stroke making process. Do you wonder if do you feel like that's enjoyable at all? Like being like not done, but if I do this enough, I'll get to the end kind of thing. Like just enjoying the walking part of the walk, you know, and not worrying too much if like you get off on a little tangent or something like that. Or if I'm wrong, then it probably has to feel that you're being very conscientious and deliberate with like all your strokes. Not to be calling you out or anything like that. If you don't want to answer, don't worry about it. I'll usually just draw what I want to see or what would feel cool, and sometimes it is like the same pose or lighting or setting or character. On a different drawing session, one compared to the next, it's like it's about where you are feeling drawn to which challenge at that moment, right? When I sometimes I'll know what piece I should be working on, for instance, and then I will be like, oh, I should work on this. But that's going to feel like work. What would be fun is if I drew a sexy picture of Jessie, for instance, right? And then I'll end up doing that instead. And then, like, because I had so much fun with it, right? It ends up getting well received and everybody likes it, right? And then I go back and I do the thing that I was supposed to do. And people are like, it's okay. Right? It's difficult to put into words. I'm not sure if I understood what you meant either. Anytime I'm drawing Ocarina of Time, it's just for fun. Definitely not because I should be. I think I'm making a case that I'm trying to analyze what I see. I'm talking out loud, talking through somewhat of an analysis that I've noticed where, and it doesn't, if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you, but I think part of what makes art making enjoyable in the first place is just mark making. I think learning to get good at drawing is this sort of accidental consequence of sort of compulsive mark making at its most fundamental thing. It's interesting to pick up something and make a mark with it, and then you do it again, and then you just sort of see what happens as you keep doing it, because you can't make the same mark in the same place and have it look the same. It'll look different. You can move it around and see other stuff, and before you know it, you've drawn something that looks vaguely like, you know, a dog, you know, with no other prompting other than that. Like, I think you could explain just the entire evolution of like why anybody starts making art, and by extension, like why humans make art. that like why we make art, right? The way I draw, it feels easiest to me, I guess. All the scribbles make it easier for me to imagine and visualize as I draw. But early on, I did want to learn how to draw, but these days, I sort of just like the puzzle that comes with drawing. Yeah, the sort of like, I guess that's what I'm saying is like, or that's part of what I'm saying is like, the pure exploration seems to yield results, and it gets you where you like the result. Darn, are we close? We're getting there with the Midna helmet. This Midna helmet is one of those things that, like, it's going to stay where it is no matter what. Like, if her hand needs to change position, I'll change the position. I'll change what needs to change if things need to change. But man, when the... when something like this is, because it's, if anything, if her head rotates the slightest, the whole thing has to get shifted over and redrawn. It's like, that's not happening. And that's kind of why I had to like set the piece aside and just sort of like sleep on it for a while. All right. I don't want to have crazy regrets about, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that. Right. I do want to get better, but I'm less about drawing better and more about something better storytelling or better mood making, something alongside just the mark making. Yeah. Do you, because you're responding in the chat, and I want to learn a little bit. Do you ever mess around with like an airbrush or anything akin to like a gradient tool? So as like because the tool that you use, I can tell you use different sizes and sometimes different textures and all of that, but it tends to be very a lot of those details are a little, they're almost like sort of what I would call like granular details, like not usually. My latest drawings have been just pencil brush and blend brush. That is sort of what that comes across as. This is like, you have to do this to get better or anything like that. This is, what I'm trying to do is, because I see this reality in stuff that you post, and I actually see it common in a lot of people's posts who are excellent, but like, I'm like, are they aware that like there's power in sort of like taking something I wonder is if like the ability these days to zoom in very close to a drawing and like noodle tiny details as if with a needle, right? Is possibly giving perspective, sort of not distorting, but like obviously like there's an upside to getting in there and like finding like fun ways of like seeing things and exploring and getting those textures and stuff like that. I'm sort of getting on the verge myself of like to where I am Yeah, I've had a you know, I wouldn't call her a student, but she is someone who is very skilled. But I sense and I feel in her art that I've seen that she could use some experience with what an airbrush might allow her to do. Not to replace what she's doing, but just to sort of be like, in this piece of fabric where she has used a fine pencil brush and blending to sort of simulate a gradient, she could have just had like a gradient. And there's a universe of difference between a blended gradient and an actual gradient. That's like saying, like if you zoom out enough, like a staircase is sort of a gradient, right? But it's or it could just be like a slope, right? If it so it's like, maybe this is an analogy that'll sort of do some lifting for me. So here is all the strokes. Strokes. Tiny strokes are this staircase. And if we blend tiny strokes, what we can get is something like this. Oop, sorry. This is like the blended tiny strokes. But I'm advocating for just a gradient. Airbrush. To control the difference, because I think what I'm saying is this is so this has lots of information. Lots of info. And information is something that I've been like trying to wrestle my head around with in terms of like how it applies to art, right? So this has lots of information. Blended tiny strokes doesn't have less information than the staircase. It actually has more. I think it has more information. I think it has more. And because I have a feeling that isn't your intention. You're not trying to add more information. What you think you're doing is blending it out. I don't think that works. It's actually more information. I believe it's more information. Whereas like, and like maybe it's like, you know, two brush strokes or something like that with an airbrush or something. You're trying to smooth something out, but in between the smoothings are more smoothings that need to happen in order to get it to be actually smooth. And you smooth the smoothings, but then instead of having smoothings in between the smoothings, you actually now you have 4 points of smoothings. This is just getting higher and higher in the amount of smoothings that you have to do at a more like aggressively small and granular rate in order to actually achieve something smooth. And then when you zoom out, the first part of the smoothing doesn't look like it connects to the last part of the smoothing. And this is something that you can avoid doing one stroke with a gradient. Just a selection and like a gradient tool is probably what you need in a situation like that. If you're blending anything like that, you should consider what other options are available. I know you've been watching my streams for a long time. I almost never, 99.99.99% never ever use blending tools. I blend optically using layers at different opacities if I need to. And I'm not information adverse, but I want information where I want the information. And if essentially our eyes are drawn to information, right? So if you want people to like look at this, then do that, I guess. But if that's not part of the reason you wanted to do the control, then, you know, consider another option. Consider another option. Everybody draws the line differently. It may not be to your tastes to use a selection and a gradient tool or a selection and an airbrush tool. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But the blending with the strokes and the strokes in between the strokes and the blending of the blendings and stuff like that, that's not hidden. It isn't invisible. Our eyeballs pick up on that stuff. We're evolved to see these nuances. And it's, I think it's something that would benefit a lot of artists to get away from. A lot of artists to get away from. So this isn't like a you thing. This is like a lot of artists kind of a thing. That said, like you're drawing, like the challenges you're drawn to are like impossibly complex scenes. It's natural to like have a lot of stuff going on, lots of information. Like that's normal. But like if you wanted to have an area of complexity, like use these options, and then you need areas of rest in between, and you need these options, right? So your eye can have, it can separate the difference between like the meal on the plate and the plate, right? All right, just food for thought. Not a bad max insight. I don't know if I'll come back to that and be like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm gonna clip that, but I think it had some merit there. Think about like one airbrush that I use. I actually find a lot of airbrushes to be unsatisfactory. One thing I do is I have a tool that I've made called the Air Pencil, which is just the pencil tool in the program I use. I made it as big as I could. So this is the maximum, 749. That's as big as I can get it. And a lot of pencils have a softness setting. So I just brought the softness all the way to 0. So, oh, this has texture on it. Let me turn that off. I also almost never use texture, but yesterday I was on a project where it made sense to. So let me turn off this grain. Okay. So that's kind of like you get a gradient here, right? It's a shitty color, but let's see here. Orange, blue. Oh, that's interesting. They're set to screen. And this isn't like a perfect gradient without any banding or anything like that, but it's still, it's like, this sort of represents two pieces of information, you know, and you get all this nice transition of color. A concept I'm trying to think about how to teach is transitions and why you make them and why they're good. I don't know, but an idea is there. Try using the airbrush. I lack a lot of the pen pressure sensitivities, so when I use gradient, it is a bit chaotic. So that's interesting, which is why I prefer the blend brush. At least in my mind, it sort of feels more controlled. Interesting. But it could also be I just haven't practiced enough with the airbrush. There may be settings that it's so true that a lot of artists are able to do wonderful things with a blend brush, especially on especially on surfaces like hair, for instance. I would never tell you not to use a blend brush like on hair or in certain places where it's super appropriate to use a blend brush. I don't do that, but other artists who do use a blend brush and know how to do it deftly and when not to use it, they do amazing things. I just don't want to see it being like the obvious go-to as a substitution for transitions that are better left to like gradients, for instance. Gradients / airbrushing. So like if I wanted a gradient for his snout, I'm making a selection right here, and it's very rough. And I can color into that some blue, and it'll have like a gradient. You see that? That's just one hit. It's nice and smooth. This extra might... and it's like, I didn't have to like... That wasn't like a stroke. It was a dot. That's just a dot. Here, I'll do it one more time. The selection is there, and I go to the most extreme edge, and it's... Here, try that again. It's like a dot, basically. It didn't actually require all that much control. So, what I think what I'm saying is it's something to consider. It's not like, you know, I don't give homework, but it's sort of like, it's an indispensable part of like my methodology, and where I don't see other artists using it, I wonder why. And this is me getting roundabout to like my initial question. I'm like, do you love making thousands and thousands of unnecessary strokes when you could just be using an airbrush? Not to passively aggressively like put it that way, but it is a like if you answered that, it's like, I just love the way making thousands of strokes calms my mind. It's very zen. I love the journey. Sometimes I don't mind. I kind of like looking for the shape sometimes. Don't worry about like my judgments as to like what is better or best or anything like that. Obviously, it's like part of what I need to learn from other artists why other artists are making tool choices and compositional choices and like are drawn to different challenges and what, you know. And it's like, one thing I love about your work is that your work looks like you, like that's like a recognizable style. So it's like there isn't any part of me that wants to see that change, right? But like we can't get better by staying the same, right? So if getting better is sort of like the idea, is like one of the goals you might have, and it's a goal for me, right? So it has to, over time, incorporate trying different things, right? Sometimes I'm annoyed how the gradient doesn't follow the shapes. The selection sort of is you want your work to be pleasable. Your work is pleasable. Sometimes I feel when I look at other people's artwork, I can see not just what they did, but what they could have done and what they wanted to do but didn't quite know how to do. Now, your works are very complex, so they're sort of like, it's not like a simple statement where it's like, oh, like that, like a person you know, their proportion was a little off or something like that. There's so much going on in your pieces that it's difficult for me to like be like, there's no one thing that like is standing out, you know, among the sea of things. It's just it's almost like a tapestry, where you do very simple things. It's I think, didn't you draw that like near Automata fan art? Like some of that was very good, and it was very simple too. Very good. You're barely trying. Me too. But introduce a little stress. Try to shake it up. Try to shake it up a little bit. I'm just having fun. You know, when if I'm working, if I'm like trying hard, it's because like there's something serious at stake, and it matters, right? This is just fun. This is for the internet updates. This is for the Reddit upvotes. The anonymous praise of people I'll never meet. For all that matters. I wonder if Danny's in the chat. He's theoretically supposed to chime in at some point. This will be a I think he knows about the stream, but he might be at work, and maybe he's, I don't even know. Maybe he'd be on break. He seemed a little stressed the other day. I hope he's doing better. It's tricky because he is so like so positive and so energetic that like when he isn't, it almost feels like, oh, what's this vibe? This is we're not used to this. Hope everything's okay. It's like it's loud, like the silence is loud, right? What's not being said is audible, right? Sort of interesting how that goes. In the Discord, there's like negative space in the conversation somehow, right? It's like interesting how this works. There's probably an artistic lesson in there too, and I don't know if you're like a musician at all, Sextra, and I am not, but I have friends who are musicians, and we talk about the idea of like composition and stuff, and how like the silence is important in music the same way like negative space. You've dabbled, yeah, but like even you know, pretty much everybody enjoys music, so it's I'll continue on even if you're like, huh, what's music? Like in jazz, like the music's, you can hear the notes they don't play. Isn't that the thing people say or whatever? Here I'm trying something a little bit different with her leg posing. I like the way her leg is, but I feel like we need a little bit of this mound of, there needs to be like a mound of wolf muscle right up there. So that it sort of makes it clear she is on this mound. There's like this mound of muscle. See, when you're ripped like me, see this mound, see this shadow, this sharp relief of a shadow right here, right there. That's the old. That's yeah, exactly. That's the Jesus Christ. Oh God. I've got weights over there too. They're just for show, of course, but one day we'll do a workout stream. But I think it's called like the brachioradialis. Let's test old Maxie. Brachioradialis. Let's see here. I hope so. Hope I'm right. Brachioradialis. Brachioradialis. That appears to be... Okay, let's just look up arm muscles. It's like showing me this one muscle and I want the... Here we go. This is what we need. It's not the brachialis, it's the... Oh my God, no, what are you doing? I hate this. God, forearm muscles. Forearm muscles. Okay. So bad. No, I don't want to sign in. Doing anything on the internet sucks. Okay, that's not it either. Hold on. Well, it's bothering me because it's only showing me the the inside view. Okay, this is... Oh, fucking neck hurts now. Zooming in. Brachioradialis is this big-bellied effer that's on the thumb side of the forearm towards the elbow. So, yes, I guess I was right. So, she's sitting on the brachioradialis of the wolf. And animals like wolves and hey, Danny, you got called out on the server. We just miss your presence is all. So she's sitting on the brachioradialis, essentially using it as a little stoop for her butt. And but you know what? I kinda... It's almost looking in a way that I don't like. That almost looks like she has like a bulge in her crotch now. So she can sit on his brachioradialis without us seeing it, I think. We have to make the right sacrifice here. The Gooners will forgive me for not having perfectly visible wolf anatomy. Oh, Karen's at work. No, sorry about that, Danny. Karens are canceled. Is there a term that is like the opposite of Karen? It's like a Jenny, right? Sort of from my time, but there were always lots of Jennifers at any school I went to, and it was like all Jennifers were cute and they were all nice. It was sort of like a known thing. We're gonna have to get some of this hair like overlapping. Maybe a little bit like that. Yeah, we are. Sometimes we say if she got 2 A's in her name, she is trouble. Oh, if her name starts with an A and ends with an so like Andrea or How am I doing mentally? Me? I'm good. Today I'm good. I'm feeling pretty supported. I am. Where I need it. That said, let me look at my phone, make sure like I don't have like 10 missed calls about or like 10 emails from my agent or something like that. Okay. Good, good, good. We kind of need a little bit of perspective distortion on. Yeah, that looks cool. Some overlaps happening here. Overlaps to show some depth, going in the correct direction. There's a lot of names that like that, but they're nice names, yeah. Okay, we're making some good progress here. Let's make sure we save our work every once in a while. Supplies to everybody. Anybody who might be sketching along. I was saying a second ago that cats and dogs have the brachioradialis muscle on their anatomies, and that's so that they can paw Or at least cats do. Actually, now that I think about it, dogs might not have that muscle, or at least not very well developed. I think they can paw a little bit, but you know how cats can like do this sort of like, they can like smack you? Like a cat can like slap you across the face. Whereas like a dog goes up and down and scratches. It's like digging versus like slapping or like batting things around, right? And or like a cat can like get up and like grab the sides of your face and like bite your fucking nose and shit. Like we've seen it. Like they're good at like a cat, like a lion, like goes up and he gets both of these giant claws right in the frickin' like butt cheeks of that zebra. These are zebra locking forearms. They just lock into that wildebeest booty. And dogs have more muscle on a bite for sure. Locking into the both sides of like the lateral sides of the booty, and they just drag it on down. Boom. Big cloud of dust. Animal is stunned. Then they pop, get that jugular. Slowly bleed out into a warm, sleepy, peaceful end of life. Like when Alex the Lion bites Marty in Madagascar. Sounds awesome. I haven't seen Madagascar all the way through. They make him look extra juicy. Which character was Marty? The zebra? Okay, yeah. Zebras have the most zebrified booties. It's like crazy. It's like, I don't know what Mother Nature's thinking. It's like these zebras like, yeah, stripes. That'll help. That'll help make me invisible. And it's like, meanwhile, it's like the predator is like, look at the size of that butt, and they just like are like in a daze. Can you imagine like a girl with a big butt with like, or a guy, but like someone with a big butt with like giant zebra with like zebra stripe pants, right? On a butt. It's like, how do you not look at that, right? That's nature's way of saying, I don't know, check this out. You pick up the kids today. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Yeah, I'm gonna pick them up at 3:45. We got some time. Hopefully I got one of you guys. It's like, oh shit, Max forgot his kids again. But I set an alarm. So I cannot forget. I've backstopped my shitty memory. So let's see here. Minna has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. 4 fingers and a thumb. That'll do there. And she has these interesting... I don't know if I want to call them like spikes, but they're like points of fur, points of interest on her fur, if it is fur. I'll sort of sketch them in for now. Integral part of the design. They also sort of put stripes on Midna, huh? I do think of them as a little fur, but it's hard to say. She can't be a rubber. Oh, like rub you? Well, I think Despite that, she's a rubber of Link Wolf here. Maybe it's like a, you know how cats will groom? They'll like lick you, but like, it's like their tongues are super, they'll like drool on you and they'll groom you. But their tongues are super rough. She actually, I didn't think about it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making an interesting new comparison. Have you ever heard of Midna compared to like a tuxedo cat? Kind of I'm not saying but I mean, look at the eye color too. Although the hair is sort of weird, comes out of nowhere. It explains nothing else, of course, but it goated new fan theory? New fan theory just dropped. Midna is a cat, and Link Wolf is a dog. Genius, well, it's definitely brilliant. I don't know if I'm a genius for having said that, but the brilliance can't be denied. Quick save. We're kind of getting close. Look at a couple of other things. Now there's the concept of hair versus tail. Now I decided that Link's tail is this little bit down here in the left-hand corner, just past his this chain and stuff. So that means up here is Midna's hair, and her hair is weird and weird AF. Sort of like a ribbon of French fries, elongated French fries. Midna hair. It's sort of this living thing. It has this collar on it. That's so weird. Why did they do that? Sometimes has a collar. Looks like they leave it alone sometimes. It's not always depicted with the collar on the hair, so I'll probably leave it out. I'm not sure if that would do much for me. Then again, without it, it almost looks like it's too much. The next Einstein? No, the next Max Forward. Yes, yes. Must be wary of missed calls or anything else. Ooh. I got a message from someone who says, ooh, that looks good. Just wanted to say I've been trying your method and it's been working out pretty nicely. I'll definitely post the finished piece is done. I'll give you a shout out. Excellent. I gotta say, this actually does look really good. I don't think they'd mind a reverse shout out. Send it over here. Now, obviously, like this, it's like in their style, but I think we can actually see some of the influence. Interesting bits of Mac's influence. Essentially, this is like the not shading, but instead lighting from darkness kind of thing. Now, I still see some shading, so it's probably not like a full conversion or whatever like that, but some of this is looking kind of cool. Now, what's interesting is I didn't actually take this person through any kind of like step-by-step. I was just, they did just seen the time lapses that I had posted on probably TikTok or Instagram or whatever. But I think they were inspired to actually give it a shot, and I think they have done a good job here of getting that that illusion of like light building up and playing with the different textures and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool. I think this is it's a goated piece in the making. This person has a really cool style. And you know, we've shared some encouraging words to each other. The way they shaded it, yeah, and I hope it brings them some success. It's super tricky with some of this stuff, but like I don't disapprove of what I'm seeing here. Just essentially like using the light to build like texture, essentially, and like obviously render the form. But now I should say it took me probably 10 years of starting from zero, like the method that I use to like build up the color and stuff like that, actually doing that and learning it to the point where I'm finally confident, like actually showing it to people in a way that I intend them to receive, is that took like better part of a decade. So we'll see. I'll ask them some questions later about like, you know, yo, drop the PSD, show me your layers, yo. You know, I'll be the judge of whether or not it was successful. Because some things that I'll point out is that like it feels like we have cooler reflected light here on the clothes and on the skin, yes, but not so much on the hair, you know. So it's definitely like cooler light being reflected pretty much everywhere here. I'm not seeing that as much here in the yellow. We'll give them some time to sort it out a little bit. I bet they'll come up with it on their own. But the light is universal, basically. So anywhere where it touches, it has to have the effect. So blue light plus yellow, what does that do? It doesn't get more yellow. It's got to do something else. It loses the saturation of the yellow. That's what it does. It basically cancels it out. It can get brighter, but it has to cancel it out. Let me tell them. Actually zoom in here. What they may be doing is applying like a universal white light across the board, which would account for like the blue getting bluer and the yellow getting yellower, kind of. But it's a little tricky. I'm gonna have to message them later about it. I wouldn't want the colors to get too muted, though, from the yellow and blue canceling out. That's what you think. That's what you think. That's why all this is counterintuitive. But bringing stuff into neutral territory is kind of what, quote-unquote, great art is all about. It kind of just depends on the effect that you want. And it's tricky. It's like, you know, and we all know I'm colorblind, so it's like, I don't necessarily know whether or not, like, the colors are actually that good on the pieces that I make. But it's a method that works for me, so, you know, I intend to keep it up. I can't be everywhere at once, so we'll try to message them later a little bit. To a certain extent, like, I don't necessarily want people saying, I learned this great new thing from this artist, here's the great piece. And then if it like doesn't actually reflect exactly what I'm talking about, like, I'm not sure if that's the best thing. But also, like, typically speaking, like, if art these days has to be like amazing, just to get noticed at all. So, like, worst case scenario, like, if it pops off and is successful, that's good in its own right, you know, and then I get to take credit. And then if it doesn't, it just doesn't even get noticed at all. Sextra, are you on DeviantArt? It's okay if you're not, but I know Danny just joined and might could use the encouragement and or boost. Actually, I think my old work was a bit gray and muted, so this year I'm trying to push colors, but it might be time to pull back. I learned to group colors and intensity. I've actually always pushed colors too far. I have an older account I've been thinking about getting back on. I don't see any reason why not. Yes, every social platform has its toxicities and stuff like that, but and this might just be that I'm in an echo chamber, but almost universally across the board, people don't want the AI slop, but they really do want the return of the human artists. And who knows if it's like, worst case scenario, this was our last chance to do something interesting with our art before all art went away. You know, that's a very doomsday scenario, but even in that case, it still makes sense to put your stuff out there. Let people see it and enjoy it. And then you can follow me and follow Danny and like our stuff, you know, at the very least. Okay, I feel like we have some really good... Gosh, look at all this time. We got all this time. So far, so good. Midna does have these kinds of interesting swirly doodles on her legs. But I'll use a different layer for that, because it's not really form. You log in once a month for the 2 or 3 likes. Well, it'll be 4 likes, because I'll like your stuff too, okay? My likes count for like 100, okay? So... yeah, Midna has some, like, energy tattoos or something. All right, that's good. Certainly is enough to keep me company. All right, let's do a little bit of the... Right, Link has these fun things on his... He's got these, like, things on his forehead, right? References... Glad we're all feeling the love today. Glad this worked out. Totally dead day. Man, I fear for my industry. But stuff like this is the perfect use of downtime. Some nice, weird tribal swirls of some purpose on his forehead. The mark of Midna or something. Cool. All right, that makes it link. Let's do a quick save, and we'll flip it and see how terrible it looks, because it very well might. Don't fear for the industry we are here to carry. First off, yes, thank you. Must be done to not by you guys, but I guess it's all about finding reach, like amplify, like part of the reason I'm working on this, for instance, as opposed to anything else. This has potential to, you know, be well received and go viral, if it is done right. I haven't really had I've had successful, like, I've had things be very successful, but never anything that I live streamed start to finish. I've had a few Zelda pieces go big time, or, you know, it's like viral for me is getting like whatever 50,000 views, for instance. That's very viral, right? But point the fans to the Discord or the stream. I want to. I think it's about time to start doing stuff like that. Yeah. Especially if I'm able to be more habitual about this stuff and consistent. And 50,000. Yeah, that's not that weird, believe it or not, for like an Instagram reach on something like that. 50,000 views is like, I mean, views, like, I'm pretty sure like Chun-Li got like 50,000 views. I mean, if it got 5,000 likes, then it probably got 50,000 views, for instance. But, you know, I did Chun-Li off stream. I did, you know, I want something to hit where I also have like the visual record of the process, like the granular visual record of the process, stroke by stroke. 5,000 people in a room is a lot. Yeah. Yeah. The, let's see here. So the process for Jesse, the process video for Jesse on Instagram got 64,000 views. And a ton of likes. Let's see. 10 likes. 10,000 likes. So, but like, part of that was, you know, it's just, the process just looked like really hit that sweet spot, and the music was goated, and it's like a goated image, right? I think this could be very popular with Zelda fans. Zelda fans share. They're really good about sharing. Probably Pokemon fans are too. We're gonna hit before, you know, we're just gonna keep pushing where we're finding out, among other things, that Pokemon stuff super popular, and Zelda stuff super popular. Not surprising about any of that. Among all the stuff that I've done, those two seem super popular, and for good reason. All right, here, let's flop this. Here, I gotta make sure we're not in the bad infringing music territory. All right, this is looking really cool so far. Where's that Zelda synth? Zelda synth. Here we go. These are kind of cool. Yeah, I kind of dig these. Okay. One thing that we can see. Ham, how you doing? Thanks for joining. We're doing this midnight piece. Now, one thing that I want to point out compositionally that isn't great. Everything is hitting really well for me, and I'm really pleased with how this looks so far, so I'm rewarding myself with a quick save. We have, ooh, that's a little hot. Sorry if the audio is a little, audio might be a little crazy right now. Hold on. What's going on here? Maybe I'm just being too amped out. Anyway, hopefully the limiter is doing its job and we're not all feeling like blown out. If the audio needs to go down, like my voice is too high, I can adjust that. All right. Let's see here. All the information that is happening up here. Audio is good. Okay. There's a lot of information there when we don't necessarily need that to be anything that the audience should really look at. The information is pulling our eyes there, and it's making this area feel heavy. So by means of demonstration, if I... Now this is on a different layer. But if you use the trusty air pencil to sort of like gradient out some of the effect of that information, like that feels a little more balanced, right? Do you guys sort of feel how limiting the information in that left-hand corner especially really helped to, like if you squint, it feels like what we're supposed to look at is all sort of collected in the lower and middle. And that's what I actually want. By eventually controlling the pattern of light and dark that's visible in that corner. So essentially, we're going to, in the end, make sure that our eyes are not drawn there by using like compositional tricks, controlling the contrast there. And just basically making it not look like there's a bunch of eye candy in that corner. So even though there is, like in this black and white sketch, these details, they feel like they're representative of something. It feels, some of this even feels like writing. Writing is very hard for the human eye to ignore. So when we see it, like we tend to maximize the importance of it. In this case, we're going to use tricks later on to de-emphasize the importance of it. I kind of see something here. Let's add a little bit of goated wolf strength in the this would be part of his like goated wolf grip. There's definitely way too much shading on this wolf form, the way I've done it. And it's hard not to shade as you go. It really is hard. Do not over tighten, right? It's hard to ignore, hard to follow my own advice a lot of the time. Maximize, yeah. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. All right, entertaining. Entertaining for me. Ah! Ah! What else can I do? Can I do this? Oh, no, that doesn't work. Shit. What if I do this? And then can I do this? Ah! 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 I don't know if that works. I don't know if that's doing anything. I think it worked. I think it worked. All right, enough of that. There's a tiny me in the bottom of the screen. Oh. Did it reset? Am I normal again? Okay. Do things look normal? Should I check the Twitch? All right. If everything's screwed up, please let me know. Otherwise, let's press on. Oh, did you clip me? Awesome. I love being clipped. There were definitely a few clippable moments on this one. And more to come. I'm not sure how the clipping process works, but it's all clippers are welcome. I want to see if I can get a nice overlap here. No, that looks good now. Yeah. Sorry, I had this notion that I should minimize the appearance of Minna's feet, and then I realized I'm like, the Gooners would probably appreciate the opposite, actually. So I think this is feeling in proportion. All right. Now we're gonna, so let's take a second to be happy about something. We're clearly, I think, about halfway through. That's the hardest part of the process, is what we just did. All this inking. Painstaking inking, making sure we even like what we're looking at is such a big deal. It's so hard to do that. And we've come around the other side now. And I am quite pleased with how things are looking so far. Some people are definitely in defeat, for sure. I'm not quite there where I need to be. Listen, feet are... Certain feet are objectively beautiful. As all parts of the human anatomy can be. And the opposite can also be the same. I feel like I need to do something different with the... Yes. Okay, this is what it is. So, and this stuff like this can be tricky. Do you guys see these earrings? So this was a problem. Initially, I had these earrings looking bigger. So the wolf link has 2 earrings, right? This is a sort of an important lesson because it's like, how do we solve important shit like this? So these earrings, there's 2 of them. They're distinctive to him. It's like kind of how you know he's human is because he's got his earrings. There are these hoop earrings. These hoop earrings, compositionally, were about the same size as his eyeballs. So when I drew them, they sort of felt like they needed to be, as they are visible in the game, sort of like the same size and circular. But there's more than one, like earrings don't have to be drawn. The reason I changed them was because they were the same size and shape as his eyeballs, and they felt like they were competing. When 2 things are of a similar size and shape in a composition, like they feel like they're supposed to relate. It feels like it's telling you something. There's like doing something, like they're supposed to be important. Like maybe they're like, oh, they're there. They look the same. Like I should make an association and a tie-in. Well, if no tie-in or association is intended, then that's bad. Because it's going to draw more attention to something that doesn't need to have the attention drawn to it. So I had to make them either bigger or smaller. Bigger wasn't going to look very good, so I made them smaller. Smaller was still bothering me. What we could do that we hadn't tried is just changing the orientation of the earrings so that they aren't flat to camera, right? Like Saturn's rings are circular, but we don't see them that way. We see them on the side. That might be too big. But something like this is probably the solution we need. Let's try it out. And thankfully, even if this doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. It's not a fix that, like, we'll spend the rest of our lives regretting. The human eyeball is very, very sensitive, very attuned to the visual of concentric circles, right? So like if we've got an ear and like the earring looks like this, like our eyeball, it's like a bullseye. Like our eye just like goes right in there. If we want to minimize that effect, we can turn it on its side. All of a sudden we can ignore it, right? So I think this looks good. What if it was even the other way? Does that feel better? That actually might feel better too. Yeah. So you guys see, I don't always have like the perfect answer first and foremost. Sometimes you have to take a step back and sleep on it. Come back, see something is fine, or it's still a little bit of a problem. The evolution eventually can get us there. People who will look for and appreciate the earring details will see them without them being something to focus on. Visually, they're only going to be as important as they are. Not very important. We don't accidentally make things important. I think that's like such a big lesson that it's a weird thing because sometimes it can be hard to notice, but what we do when we're trying to draw stuff like details is we can accidentally make something that isn't important look super important. And all we did was draw it as it is in real life, for instance. But part of why we're artists and we're not cameras is we don't just look at something. Did you guys ever see that Napoleon Dynamite movie? And like he's drawing a picture of a girl. And like part of it is like he spends an inordinate amount of time shading the upper lip. And like talks about it. It's like, oh, I've spent forever shading the upper lip. Spent like 5 hours shading the upper lip, you know. I don't even think we ever like really see the art that he makes, other than like he does like a liger. It's his favorite animal. It's like a classic film. But yeah, just because you see shade on the upper lip of something doesn't mean you need to draw a bunch of attention to it, right? Just a common mistake I see in other people's art and my own is accidentally making something more important than it is. Learning how to see your stuff objectively is very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do. But once you sort of, well, you have to practice it constantly. But once you get the hang of it, it usually just comes down to squinting or viewing at a distance, right? Just zoom out. Or view it at a distance, or flop it so you're looking at the reverse of it, or even print it out and look at it upside down, or whatever. But being able to objectively analyze your work that's as good as any feedback. You'll pre-catch almost all your mistakes if you do that at least. Okay, so this is looking good. We've been going Yeah, it is W advice. It's looking real good with the line work. Thank you. I think at this point we can start to transition out of. Okay, ooh, how's that? Nice and bright. Yeah, this is some W line art right here for sure. Really, really good. Okay, we're gonna do a. This is like my favorite thing because it's fun and easy, and we're gonna sort of find and implement some of that relief shading. The relief shading is the little bits of shading that we find and put in that is akin to the kind of stuff you find. Essentially trying to make it look, this is an optional layer, but it's something that it resembles the kind of shading you see on a coin, for instance. So it's still flat, but feels like it's got some sort of shading a little bit. Hold on, I'm going to adjust something. All right, now I can hear myself talk. Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know, but maybe this is too close. How about that? How about that? Oh, wow, that kind of does make a big difference. Anyway, better or worse, you let me know. Every inch matters. Okay. I think audio is good. Thank you. I know it's not perfect. There's actually nothing I can do to make it perfect when like the loud fan that is just a foot away from the microphone that keeps my desktop from overheating. It's like I can't do anything about that, unfortunately. Audio will never ever be perfect. Yeah. The more I like learn about this stuff, and without saying too much about what my wife does, like she's an expert at understanding why audio can never be perfect. Okay, I mean, soundproof walls thingy. No, it's the sound is in the room. The sound is the see this thing that's illuminating my face. See the light on my hands? It's essentially like my drawing desk is a giant hot light bulb, and I've got the AC blasting. I'm hoping to. There's just no way to soundproof quite what's going on with this situation, and that's okay. We're gonna leave it be. We're gonna move on. We're gonna box all this line art up into a group. That's a good one. All right, so this is looking cool. This is like epic line art. All live, all on stream. And now we just go into sort of these like anything that is the underside of a form, and especially in a crevice, gets tagged with a little bit of a boost. To help feel the forms a little bit more. And I'm actually going to probably switch to a bigger, let's use, there we go. Yeah, we can see that this pen is a interesting, fun, dynamic range. So just to quickly, some people do ask about the brushes, and I don't share my brushes with anyone. yet. But actually, a big part of the reason is because I use Corel Painter and no one else on the planet uses that. So it's sort of a moot point. I can't share my brushes, so I don't. But behind the scenes, I'm kind of trying to work on something in Clip Studio Pro and seeing if I can get something that over there I can migrate to. So we'll see. And those I might share. Okay, so just a little bit of a clinic on Maxie's brushes. So this is all the same brush, just held at different angles. It's got a hard edge and a hard edge on both sides. And it's pressure sensitive too. So I can make gradients by doing something like that, or I can make a gradient by applying pressure. Lots of interesting ways of controlling it. And then this brush is the one that we were just using. It's actually the same brush, but it's tweaked to have a soft edge. So this is hard. And then this is like, I don't know, soft. Right? But it's got all the dynamism. So it's kind of cool. So I'll make those brushes someday available to all. Part of the reason I don't share them is because, frankly, in this world where everybody's sort of just stealing each other's styles and stuff, and I'm only talking about like AI bros. If another person approximates the way I'm drawing or whatever, like, you know, darn, but you know, kudos. I don't own Midna, and I'm stealing her, you know, and all that stuff. And my style is an approximation. It's like an amalgamation of several different artist styles. It's like a little bit of Will Eisner, a lot of Disney and classical animation, and some anime thrown in, and you kind of get me. So study those people, and you'll have something similar. All right, now getting into the shading. Okay, the relief shading is, like I said, we need to, get back to the same brush. There we go. Just something that has a little more oomph. We don't need to be delicate about this part. Plus it's on its own layer. I can always dial it back later. But trying to find instances in the form where we have overlaps that might create a shadow. But we're not shading, really. We're just sort of underscoring, sort of a great word for it, overlaps and where those happen. But only on the underside. It's not like you can't have shadows on the top sides of things. It's just, it's not as normal. It's not as usual. And keeping it limited to the underside really gives it an accessible sense of depth. Now here, it's sort of like totally vertical up and down. And kind of do a gradient. If you felt you needed to do something there, you could do that. Here, the hair is going behind. The helmet is going behind the hair. So we ignore all that. And then pick it up here where the hair is clearly in front. And where you've got a clear overlap and something to cast a shadow on, kind of do a little triangle. That's fun. Ah, we're both live drawing Zelda at the same time. Awesome. Hey, Ace. So on some parts of her helmet where it feels like it might be touching her skin, you would think I would put something there, but actually I want to establish that that's a contact point, so I'm not going to do that. Because if you do that, it looks too overlapped. Whereas like... Ah, you're doing brick. There you go. Yeah, we've successfully inked the Midna Wolf sketch, and it's looking pretty goated. A little goated thus far. If I do too many instances of this shading on all the nodules of her helmet, it'll look overdone. So let's ignore that for a while and just concentrate on the major forms first. Agreed, I was contemplating adding Midna to my piece. You definitely should. The imp Midna or the true form Midna is the only question. Yes. Now some may ask, Max, won't this look like you've got these big black blobs all over your finished piece when you're done rendering and coloring it? And the answer is kind of no, it won't, because my coloring process sort of forces the viewer to ignore black and ignore shading because there's so much in it. It just gets lost. There's so much, because my pieces start out so dark, anything that doesn't have light on it just ends up looking like shadow and is unlit. And it's just the contrast of color and light just isn't there to grab the eye. So nobody looks at it. So none of what I'm doing will really be visible or translate to the final image, but what it will help me do is see it'll help me see 3D forms as I go along, and that's helpful. I would say imp, but I can fit her in better than this. I can fit her better in the spot I would want to put her. Yeah, Because Trueform Midna she's kind of, she's tall even for a female Zelda character. Definitely not a lot of space for Trueform Midna as a late stage add-in to a composition. Quick save. Everybody save your work. Quickly infer some ear details there. Okay, back to this. Just quickly making sure I don't have any crazy text messages from thousands of people. Good, good, good. Because I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, you know? The detail in the headpiece is goated. Thank you. That thing is tricky, but should be an easier ride from here on out. I hope so. Your phone's always on vibrate. Yeah, why did my phone stop? Like, what it does is it breaks in through my headphones, and then that starts to switch the audio around on the stream. And then I have to, you know, essentially silence my phone, and then I come back and the, like it screws up the audio, like the mic gets switched over to something else, and all this other stuff, and I'm like, that is lame. That's just lame. Something I think about now that I didn't used to is the flow of the procedure and how it, you know, the phone audio through your computer. In the, like, Apple's attempt to be helpful is to make it so that you can do calls and access that stuff via like your computer's audio systems from time to time. You know, just to justify the existence of like FaceTime and stuff like that, Which at this point, Apple would probably everybody just stop using altogether, but... It works when I want it to. It's just I never want it to. So mostly it's just a waste. And it's nothing I'm trying to troubleshoot or anything right now, but... So the process of the time lapse, like I could be just sort of whatever and just draw things all higgledy-piggledy, like, oh, here I could do something, and here I could do something, and here I could do something. But it does kind of work if you treat it like a flow, covering sections that are aesthetically pleasing or like satisfying one at a time, right? I've been a little more strategic about how I time and the order in which I tackle certain areas or certain sections of the render. Because it doesn't look that great if you do it all totally random. It can look good, but what's better is if it feels like, oh, there was a clear and planned, even if it's not planned out. If you were sort of like discreet about being decisional about which sections you are rendering out one at a time, it'll look intentional. And people might respond to that with much praise. Quick save. Thanks, Danny. Okay, we got half hour, a little less than half an hour. I'll probably quit out at like 3:35 or something, because I'll probably have to pee. Sorry. Information nobody needed. But this has been a long stream, and I don't... I don't have the emotional confidence to assume that if I get up and pause and take a break or whatever, that anybody will be there when I come back, so... All right. Enjoy, Ace. Thank you. You're allowed to take breaks. This is normal. I'm not normal. All right, Boxer forgets to. Ham, since you're in the chat, not that you're an expert on this stuff, but are you aware if there is a difference in the... Are there flavors of ADHD where people are really drawn to and appreciate tons and tons of visual detail on something? Because that's not what I have. I have the opposite, where like I have an aversion to tons and tons of physical detail on things. We were earlier in the stream before you joined. I was talking about how I hate how there's tons and tons of detail on this helmet, and that how in like video games, just in general, there's just way too much detail, especially in fantasy armor settings and stuff like that. I'm not so much talking about like the free Ren characters. That doesn't feel too excessive to me, but I guess on a lot of like League of Legends, there's a lot of stuff where that would probably get into sensory overload, over or under stimulation. Okay. I get sensory overload when I see too much detail. And I guess like a snarky person could say like, well, who doesn't or whatever, but like when I look at how government forms are arranged, and like there's no composition to them in a way that like is like, oh, what is the I don't know where I'm supposed to look first, or like a menu with too many items on it. This is a secret shameful fact about me, but I actually don't enjoy reading a lot of comic books because they're a little too visually like I can't track with the intended pace. I just end up looking at everything all at once, and as a result, I really end up missing story. What I do appreciate about comics is they tend to have like, the ones that I pick up at least tend to have like really great art, so I'll just be into and absorb all that art. And then as I'm absorbing the art, I can get the gist of a story. But like now that doesn't apply to books, interestingly enough, because I'm like, oh, the words on a page, it's clear that you start from the top to all the way to the bottom. Like that's not a problem, and I enjoy reading and I enjoy books, but many types of things are so overstimulating for me that I can't make sense of them. Similar with sounds. Yeah, I'm very overstimulated with sounds, and I don't I'm actually extremely uncomfortable at crowded places and live music venues. So if I go to a concert, it's usually like I'm getting dragged there. You know, by Julie. Computer sound is literally on like 2 at most times. Okay, I can deal with like music, like background music here, for instance, or whatever. Sometimes I like it, but definitely there's music and also game sound. Someone speaking all at once. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so we're making very good progress here. Do a quick save. And honestly, I don't think I'll take it all the way to 345 because this is looking good, and I'll be done in a minute with like this part, and that's the best place to stop because I don't want to start coloring anything. Oh, you know what I could do? I could fill in the negative space. So yes, we will go to 345 because I still got one more trick up my sleeve. Thanks, Ham. It's not that I have to you know, typecast you as the resident ADHD expert or whatever, but you seem to be knowledgeable and you know, willing to discuss and stuff like that. And I'm undiagnosed, so I'm winging it. Okay. Part of it is seeing as how my son is growing up, and you know, teachers are sort of flagging certain behaviors. It's not just teachers, it's like we see this stuff too. But it's like, oh, okay, that is, I didn't know what that was, but now I do know that he is stimming. He's stimming, you know. And he's able to like hold on to it, like when he like in appropriate context, he knows to like not do it or whatever. And that from what I've looked up, this is something that sort of like self-corrects over time, basically via social cues, basically negative reinforcement from peers and other people. So it's not necessarily something I'm going to make a lot of headway with. Yeah, learning words for behaviors will make you feel like a toddler sometimes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, he's stimming. I'm like, do I do any stimming? I'm not even sure about that. But, well, probably if I did, it was sort of corrected out a long time ago. But it's like we're not dismissive about this stuff. So we ended up getting a trampoline, and he loves it. And obviously he's doing really, really well on that. So we're just sort of learning how to be supportive and stuff. But he passed kindergarten, so that's good. Neurotypical people can stim too, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And his teacher really liked him and stuff like that. So he's not like a problem kid in class or whatever. Between, you know, stimming and or, you know, it's like, okay, so Robbie tends to like run around in circles and flap his arms for a few minutes every day at school. You know, it's not necessarily great, but the other kid in class like cries at the drop of the hat. So I'll take the win where I can get it, you know. Oh, this is funny. Here, I gotta show this. This is a funny thing. I asked for I wanted, sometimes I'll coax some compliance out of him. So I asked Robbie to draw a picture of him jumping on the that's him jumping on, Robbie drew a picture of himself jumping on the trampoline. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. But I'm always interested in seeing how people learn how to draw and seeing the things, seeing the decisions that they make. And like, here's one where he started, right? This is actually pretty indicative of how the trampoline actually looks because it's got posts. It's got these posts. It's got a net. It's got a ladder. It's got these. It's got like, it actually does this where it's like, it's not just like poking into the ground. It kind of has this bridge and then it goes back up and stuff. So there's this structure to it. Robbie started drawing this and then realized something that it was like he was adding too much or something. So he self-edited and just drew the vibe, right? This is the vibe of jumping on a trampoline. He didn't draw the big net, the enclosure and stuff like that. He just drew the vibe, right? That's what everybody should be doing. Just draw the vibe. Seeing how he self-corrected, because I didn't say like, oh, well, Robbie, if you draw the net, you're not going to be able to see you in the thing or whatever like that. He sort of saw that. I saw him sort of figure that out as he was going on himself and then just start over again. And that was big maturity. Some kids will just, and this wasn't beyond him either. We're just sort of like, oh, I don't like what I drew. I can't figure it out. The first time I tried to draw something didn't work out, so I hate drawing or whatever. Wouldn't that be a shame? Oh, here, let me put it back. He's self-corrected. You made it easier for him. He drew what he could. And it was great. Yeah, it's the idea is there. He knows I don't need to see him in an enclosure. It's not about the enclosure. It's about the trampoline. Okay. Here we go. Anyway, I might have missed a spot or two, but this is the gist of what that looks like. So if it might be a little tricky to appreciate, well, what exactly did we just do? It's not obvious to see the effect that it has, but if we turn it off, and back on again, we can see it actually does add a good amount of depth. Definitely helps me. All right, last thing we're going to do is, because this is all looking good. Actually, let's do a quick flip. So when we flip our images, we see stuff we might have overlooked or we did not notice before. I think this is looking great. It looks good to me too. Yes. So, we're going to take a little time to draw let's see here. We might need... It's sort of subtle. Let me see if I can adjust one more thing. Because now we're thinking about the negative space on the image. And that just got me a little worried that I hadn't done enough to make clear where like the other limbs on Link's body are. It's sort of, there's still a lot of room to play with that stuff. A lot of room to play with that stuff still. Whatever side works for the finished piece. I think it's pretty established that Link's left hand has the chain on it. Wait, no, right hand. I don't know. Whichever one it is, we should make it consistent. So we'll flip it back. Wait, which one was it originally? Let me look at the Instagram. Just make it consistent with the Instagram, I guess is the point. Not getting nearly enough likes on that post. Okay, so actually, I need to flop it. Yeah, the chain is on Link's left hand. According to my Insta, it's this orientation. So we'll match that. Now when we do... Now, Professor Max... Why do we fill in negative space and not the positive space? Well, there are a couple of interesting reasons. In the case of this, there is usually... in the case of this image in particular, there's actually far less negative space than there is positive space. And so by filling in the negative space, we can then invert it, and then that becomes the positive space. Why do we do any of this at all? Because the positive and negative space is like the most important part of composition. And so having those areas selected out, especially in a piece like this, is a big strategic time save and great tool for just making sure you're being intentional with your composition as you go. And speaking of being intentional, let's make sure we're intentional about where we start filling things in, because people pay attention to the time lapses now. So down here, this little gap is negative space. That means all the area around it is Link. Link's arm, Link's whatever, his body. Some of these vague bits of marks are here to haunt me, because, you know, just a fuzzy line does not, you know, a mark does not a line make, right? But here we can be deciders on it. By deciding about the space that we don't need, we ultimately determine the space that we do. So it's kind of a decision-making hack. By making it very clear what we don't want, we're arriving to a better conclusion. If we don't know what we do want, but we do know what we don't want, Then it's sort of like a process of elimination, determining what is and what isn't Lincoln Midna's body. Quick final save, yeah. I even like to save the process, iterative save the process of filling this stuff in too. The more I do this, the more I realize it's like the more saves, the better, basically. Better safe than sorry. The more saves I do, the more stages, or like inputs, or frames of the process I can pull into a timeline and make an edit out of. And this will be a fun little test experiment, because when this is done, I guess what I could do, if I wanted to be strategic about it, I could, before I even post the final image, I could make sure that I had like all of the, because I'm planning on streaming all of the process for this. That means it's going to take a while. But before I'm done, because I don't have to be done in order to prepare, I can start preparing an editing timeline and stuff and start bringing in videos from the process. So that when the final art is ready to be posted, it can be posted, but I can also sort of like announce that, hey, the full, if you have questions on how this was done, I'll make it look amazing. And then it can sort of be, if people start, because essentially if it catches, then a lot of people end up asking a lot of questions in the comments and stuff like that. They'll be like, how did you do this? And I'll be like, actually, I have an answer for you. It's not quite a tutorial yet, but it is something where the entire process is discussed in live stream. And we'll probably answer any question you have. I think it could be a good idea. Or it'll jinx the whole thing, Because it's like, if you prepare too much and get your hopes up, things will just end up sucking, right? All right, almost down with perfect timing. I sort of insist. See, a lot of people might try to use like a paint bucket tool or something to do fills, and that's fine if that's your preference. But I actually aesthetically appreciate the look of stuff that is hand filled in. I'm not the only one either. It's weird. Plus, I already talked about earlier in the stream about how stroke making is meditative. I'm like, okay, on stuff like this, I'm guilty of it. So there's no shame in admitting that you just like the effect of seeing your mark on a piece of paper. All right, so that is cool. So even in just this very simple way, we can see the appeal of how just a simple bit of gray in the negative space can really help the design pop. The silhouette read and the design pop. All right, let's wrap it up. All right, so we're gonna do. No, we need to do 50-50. All right, here we go. You know what I need to do? I need to designate like an exit music. What is that? What is it? I think it's this. Is it this? It's kind of like a... This is Fies or Fees Farewell. It's Zelda music, right? So this qualifies. Of course I paused it. I'll get better about this. We'll make it an official thing. I like this idea. All right, if anybody's chatting, I'm afraid I can't see it right now. But I really appreciate people showing up for the stream. It was cool. Made a big push on this today, and I know it's going to be a goated piece, and I'm super excited that that feels like starting to make traction on everything. We have hope. We have hope. All right, everybody have a great afternoon. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Adios.